And she is the president of Akashic Record Consultants International, which we call ARCI. And so it's a group of about, I think there's about 25 teachers, although there's probably only about 6 active teachers in the United States. And they use what we now call the sacred prayer method. This prayer was given to a gentleman about 50 years ago. And so I'll tell you that's what this lineage that I am working in is about 50 years old. It's been back on this planet for that long. And the story is this gentleman named Johnny Prochaska. He was from Spain. He was a businessman living in Mexico, and he had a reoccurring dream for about 3 years. And what he dreamt was of this kind of old Mayan woman beckoning to him. He had no idea what that meant, but he kept having this reoccurring dream. One day he was actually walking through the barrio in Mexico City and saw the woman. And she beckoned to him, and he went and talked to her, and she told him about the ancient ones who had been waiting for him to come forward and to bring this Akashic record information back to the planet. That it was time for everyone to be able to access the Akashic field again. And what they said was that we all had this ability for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But then somewhere around the Dark Ages, people really misused the information. They misused it. They used it for gain and for conquering and to, find the gold and the jewels and the energy was pulled away from the earth. So literally that vibration was raised far enough away from the planet that it made it really difficult for anyone to access the records unless they were on a very spiritual path. So of course, mystics and prophets and psychics and people who are really, spiritually attuned, spiritual leaders and teachers could of course always access this divine information. But the general populace could no longer. So this woman took Johnny Prochaska into the mountains outside of Mexico City, and they were met there by these ancient ones, these beings who live in another dimension, the Pleiades. They're considered Mayan, Pleiadian. That's where we are told that the origin of this specific prayer comes from. And so they gave him a golden tablet, put it into his crown chakra so that it was embodied in him on a cellular level, and so that he could bring this vibrational key back to mankind. And so Johnny Prochaska went around and taught this prayer method to people really through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I actually think he passed away in the 90s. He moved back to Mexico, I think, in the late 80s and passed away in Mexico. Again, he had been living in Arizona in the 80s, the last I think we know of him. But he did teach this prayer to a woman named Mary Parker, who was a Texas housewife, and she realized that if she could learn this sacred prayer method and access the Akashic records for herself and for her friends, that this was something that anyone could really do. And so she traveled around the United States also teaching this method through the 80s and 90s. And then in about 2000, I think in 1, she created a nonprofit organization which we call ARCI, A-R-C-I, ARCI, and then is Akashic Record Consultants International. And like I say, I'm a teacher with ARCI, and there are not as many as we would like, but maybe one of you will be the next. Oh, there's my next teacher, Holly. So, but then, there's a lot of people right now who are being called to this work. And it is so important for us to be divinely guided as we go through life now. Because we've been, we've listened to our intuition. Sometimes we really get it. Sometimes it's not as clear as we'd like. And as we go forward, and right now we're in such a void of time, that it becomes even more important for us to have that internal guidance. And so I love doing readings for people, I love being a consultant, but what I really hear from the masters of the records is that it is time for everyone to be divinely guided themselves, so that we can step our vibration up, that we can go through life with a real different view.